When a humbled mechanic revealed his incredible talent, a millionaire's life-changing promise was born. Joe had never been one to chase after glory. The small garage he ran in Maplewood was a sanctuary of sorts, a place where the smell of oil and gasoline mingled with laughter and shared stories. At 42, every wrinkle on his face told the tale of sleepless nights spent worrying about his teenage daughter, Lily. Since losing his wife, he was both mother and father, grappling with the storms of adolescence as best as he could. Outside, the town buzzed with life, a community tightly knit by bonds of empathy and support. But inside, he often felt the weight of solitude pressing down on him, especially on days when Lily would quietly slip into silence. One sun-soaked afternoon, beneath the dinosaur of vintage cars outside his garage, a shiny luxury sedan rolled up. With the engine sputtering like a wounded animal, David, a businessman from the nearby city, hopped out. He looked out of place in Maplewood, with his crisp suit that seemed to clash with the rustic charm of the small town. "Can you help me?" he asked, an air of desperation evident in his voice as Joe rolled up his sleeves. A familiar spark ignited within him. He worked with an intensity that came from years of practice, channeling the lessons his late father had taught him: patience, precision, and pride in craftsmanship. Each turn of the wrench breathed life back into David's car, and as the sun gleamed through the greasy window, it seemed to illuminate not just the vehicle but also the bond growing between Joe and his daughter Lily, who had come to lend a hand. Watching them, David felt an unexpected wave of inspiration. It wasn't just about fixing a car. It was witnessing a father love his daughter fiercely. "You know, Joe," he said, hesitating for a beat, "I'd like to help you with something bigger. How about we build that community center you talked about?" Joe's heart raced. It was a dream he had shelved away, thinking it just too lofty. Before Joe could respond, a familiar chorus of whispering filled the air. Rumors began swirling through town, casting shadows over Joe's newfound opportunity. The whispers spoke of past mistakes, insinuating that Joe didn't deserve the help offered by a businessman like David. The prejudice nestled deep in the hearts of some townsfolk began to burble up, and soon, whispers morphed into doubts, poisoning the air. "Who does he think he is?" they murmured, the judgment palpable. Joe felt that weight press heavier on him. Could he stand up against the tide of disapproval, or should he retreat, slip back into the shadows, like the ghosts of his past that haunted him? Just when it felt like his hopes were about to fade, Lily came up to him. She looked straight into his eyes, her own sparkling with fierce hope. "Dad, you're good enough. You always have been." As he stood there, wrestling with fear and doubt, the heart of Maplewood began to rally around him. People drove by, offering solidarity, giving him hope in their kind gestures and warm smiles. The vibrant community he had always known was not about to let him go down without a fight. But the question loomed over him. Would he find the courage to embrace this chance, or allow the weight of others' judgments to crush his dreams? The rhythm of anticipation quickened, setting the stage for what was to come next. Joe stood at the edge of his garage, watching as one by one, familiar faces of Maplewood appeared. There was Mrs. Delaney from the diner, carrying a tray of coffee and donuts. Behind her, the Johnson brothers, always ready with a laugh, lifted their tools. Despite the whispers that had snaked through the town, a small army had gathered to support him. "Hey Joe!" shouted Tommy, the younger Johnson brother, his enthusiasm infectious. "We heard you might be starting something big, and we're here to help." "Yeah, it takes a village, right?" chimed in his brother, grinning widely. Joe felt a warmth draft over his heart, momentarily easing the pressure that had built within him. With every moment that passed, the garage transformed into something vibrant. A workspace buzzed not just with engines but with laughter and encouragement. As the townsfolk began brainstorming ideas for the community center structure, Joe couldn't help but feel a spark of hope reignite within him. Maybe this could be real. Maybe together they could actually build something that would benefit everyone. David returned to town later that week, his briefcase pressed tightly under his arm. He had his consulting plan in hand, and Joe felt the weight of anxiety wash over him. Could he face David after hearing all those nasty rumors? As they sat together at a rickety table inside the garage, David began to map out his vision. This isn't just a structure, he said, eyes blazing with conviction. It's going to be a hub of creativity. A place where kids can learn and adults can connect. Joe nodded, feeling the momentum gather. But what if they decide to still think I'm unworthy of this? His voice wavered with vulnerability. He hadn't fully realized until that moment how deeply the harsh words had penetrated. David leaned in, sincerity washing over his features. You're not alone in this, Joe. You have more support than you know. The doubts others cast just noise. It won't drown you if you hold firm. Encouraged by his words, Joe took a deep breath. He gazed outside, where the townsfolk were busy measuring and discussing plans with excitement practically oozing from them. This moment felt pivotal, as if they were collectively stepping toward a future they longed for. But as the drawings were drafted and the plans slowly fell into place, whispers still echoed. A group of town skeptics gathered outside the garage one evening, their faces clouded with discontent. Why are we wasting our time with him? One man shouted, folding his arms defiantly. He is nothing but a grease monkey with a dream. Another scoffed, adding to the unease in the air. Joe's heart sank. Was this all going to crumble before it even began? Could he truly stand tall amidst the rising tide of negativity? Just as he contemplated retreat, Lily stepped forward. The determination on her face mirrored her father's thoughts. You don't know my dad. He has given everything to this town. We all need to believe in each other. As her words echoed within the gathered crowd, something shifted in the air. The tension subtly began to unravel, replaced by murmurs of curiosity. A few other townsfolk chimed in, sharing stories of Joe's hard work, of how he helped fix their cars without a second thought. And in that shifting moment, as hope fluttered through the crowd like a gentle breeze, Joe realized he might just have the strength to face the storm. But with doubts still lingering, Joe couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle had yet to come. The chaos bathed the night in uncertainty when he received a call from David, his voice grave. Joe, there is something we need to discuss about the community center, and it involves the town's essential decisions. What was happening that made David sound so worried? Joe's heart began to race again. Would everything he had dreamed of come crashing down before it even had the chance to rise? Joe stared at his phone, the gravity of David's voice sinking in. The warmth of hope that had filled his heart moments ago felt distant now. What could possibly be troubling enough to warrant such a tone? Hey Joe? David's voice crackled through the line again, pulling him back to the moment. Can you meet me at Joe's Cafe in 15? We need to address some concerns from the town council. Could change everything. Yeah, Joe fumbled with his words, his heart racing as he hung up. He felt the familiar knots tighten in his stomach. Something wasn't right. He stepped outside, the cool evening air ruffling through his hair, and looked at the bustling scene before him. The townspeople laughed and collaborated, confident in this ambitious project that Joe had started. But now, that laughter felt like an echo of a distant dream. Unease consumed him. When he arrived at the cafe, he spotted David in a booth, his face serious and drawn tight with concern. Joe slid into the seat across from him, bracing for impact. We have a problem, David said immediately, placing a file on the table. It was thick, bulging with printed pages. The council is hesitant. They're worried about community funding. They say they want to back the center, but only if you can prove its viability, and that means serious paperwork and plans. Joe's heart sank further. Do they not see what is happening already? He blurted out, frustration bubbling to the surface. We've already got support. We can actually do this. They see it, David insisted, leaning closer. But they need guarantees, Joe. It's not just about goodwill. They want numbers, projections. He opened the file, filled with spreadsheets and graphs. I believe you can do it, but you'll have to work fast. The deadline is next week. Joe felt the walls closing in. Numbers? Figures? That wasn't his world. Mechanics and engines were second nature. But this was a foreign landscape, a place where creativity could slip away in the fine print. I don't know, David. Can I really? You can. David interrupted him, eyes blazing with conviction. You've already inspired so many to stand by you. If you can gather the support and the voices of change, you can tackle this. I believe in you, Joe. Their eyes locked, and Joe saw the conviction flicker in David's gaze, igniting a spark within himself. The weight of misgivings had to give way to action. If anyone could find a way through this labyrinth, it would be together. I'll do it, Joe said, adrenaline replacing helplessness. I'll gather my notes, reach out to everyone, and we'll show them what we can build together. With renewed determination, Joe left the cafe, adrenaline coursing through him. He envisioned the plans coming together not just on paper but in reality. He spent hours that night reworking ideas, drawing sketches, mapping out the potential of their center. But as hope sparked, a new worry crept in, gnawing at him. What if they didn't believe the numbers could translate to the heart? What if it wasn't just the council he had to convince, but a town divided in doubts? He glanced at the clock, realizing bedtime was long past, but he felt alive in the task. With the dawn came an idea. There was strength in numbers. He needed to rally everyone, get them involved, and bring their stories to the council. They had to see the heartbeat of Maplewood, not just its budget. Determined, Joe picked up his phone. This was far from over until he did what he set out to do. The real challenge still lingered in the shadows. But right before he could hit dial, there was a knock at the door. Who could it be? Joe's pulse quickened. Whatever lay behind that door could be the turning point or the breaking point. Joe hesitated, hands still hovering over the phone as he took a moment to steady his breathing. The knock came again, this time more insistent. He glanced around the cluttered living room, where blueprints and coffee cups arranged themselves haphazardly, his life's work precariously balanced in the chaos. Who is it? He called, attempting to mask the quiver in his voice. Joe? It's Emily, came the reply. The warmth in her voice washed over him like a soothing balm. Relief flooded his chest, but curiosity tugged at his gut. He opened the door, revealing her flushed face, eyes sparkling with something he couldn't quite decipher. Hey, Emily, he said, stepping aside to let her in. What's up? I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd check in. She brushed a lock of hair behind her ear, her smile infectious, but he sensed a gravity in her presence. Good timing, he replied with a weak laugh. Just got some news about the funding from the council. It's not looking great. Emily frowned, her expression shifting to concern. What's going on? He motioned for her to sit on the couch, the weight of his burdens settling heavily on his chest. They want projections, numbers. I just don't know if I can deliver that kind of stuff. I was hoping to gather support, show them the community backing behind our center. I know you can do it, Joe. You've got this passion that can spark change. She leaned forward as she spoke, her sincerity grounding him. Passion isn't enough, he murmured, running a hand through his hair. What if it's just me holding on to a dream? What if I can't convince them? Emily's gaze hardened. Joe, they believe in you. They see the difference you're making in this town. It's not just numbers. It's about the people, the families you're helping. Tell their stories. Show them who you're fighting for. Her words hit home, settling deep within him, igniting that smoldering hope once more. How do I even start that? Do I gather everyone for a meeting? Yes. Or better yet, a community event. We can showcase the projects, share testimonials, create a visual representation of what this center means to Maplewood. As they brainstormed together, ideas bubbling between them like a shimmering fountain, Joe began to feel the spark of ambition reignite. He could see it now, a gathering in the park, laughter and stories flowing like the warm sunlight filtering through the leaves. He could gather the townspeople, have them share their dreams, their needs. I can do that, he said slowly, excitement threading through each word. I'll start reaching out immediately. We'll turn this around. Emily beamed at him, her positivity washing over him like fresh rain. That's the spirit. Just think, people will line up to back this. You're not just building a center, you're building community. Don't forget your strength lies in your ability to connect. Their discussion flourished, and Joe's mind raced with excitement. But a small voice in the back of his mind whispered doubts. What if, even with all the energy and enthusiasm, it wasn't enough? As they wrapped up their plans, Joe felt a swell of gratitude for Emily's encouragement. He opened the door to let her out, basking in the warmth of new possibilities. "Let me know when you plan this event, I'll be there to help," she said, before pausing. "And Joe, remember, the town needs someone like you. Don't lose sight of that. Thanks, Emily." "I won tea," he promised, though a sliver of uncertainty remained, coiling tightly in his stomach. With her gone, he picked up his phone once more, ready to send a message. He would rally the town. He would do this. But as he began typing, another thought crept in. What if someone stepped in to undermine his efforts? What if the council's distrust wasn't just a hurdle, but a wall? The questions swirled in his mind, but he found comfort in the warmth of the shared dream. He took a deep breath and pressed send. And just as he was about to delve into his next steps, the phone rang again. A number he didn't recognize lit up the screen. His heart raced. Could it be another ally or someone who would threaten everything? Joe stared at the phone, its persistent ringing cutting through the quiet of the room. He felt a lump form in his throat as uncertainties flooded his mind. Who could it be? Would they bring hope or more complications? He reluctantly swiped to answer. "Hello?" he said, trying to hide the tremor in his voice. "Is this Joe Thompson?" The voice was deep, gravelly, and laced with an urgency that set Joe on edge. "Yes, this is Joe," he replied, gripping the phone tightly. "Joe, this is Jake Mercer. I'm with Maplewood Funds. I received your message about the community center. We need to talk." His heart raced at the mention of the funding group. "Okay, what do you need?" "We're interested in your proposal, but there are some concerns we'd like to address. Can you meet tomorrow?" "What kind of concerns?" Joe's stomach twisted. He could feel the tension building. "Mainly about community support and the financial projections. This is a sizable investment." Jake's tone softened slightly. "I'll be honest, we just want to make sure this is sustainable." Joe didn't want to lose this opportunity. "I'll gather the stories and testimonials. I'll show you how important this center is to the town. I just need a chance. Then come prepared. I'll see you at 10. Jake hung up without another word. Joe set the phone down, a whirlwind of thoughts colliding in his mind. Questions raced past him like a river rushing to the sea. Would he be able to convince them? What if his preparations weren't enough? The wave of self-doubt crashed against the fragile bank of hope he had just started to build. He took a breath and decided it was time to put his plans into motion. Joe picked up his laptop, opening a fresh document. He started outlining the community event. The park, the stories, the games. He would fill the space with the heart of Maplewood. With each keystroke, memories flowed and families gathered for the 4th of July barbecue. Kids running around with balloons, laughter echoing off the trees. This was what he had to show. This was the community he was fighting for. As he typed, a strange calm washed over him. He envisioned Emily by his side, rallying the townsfolk, bringing together the voices that mattered. The next morning, he wrote up a brief about the event, a timeline, and key points about the community's needs. With each detail, he felt more grounded, less afraid. He wasn't alone in this. He had Emily's support, and he had the townspeople who believed in him. As he finished the document, a knock on the door pulled him back from his thoughts. It was Jason, one of the local fathers who often volunteered at the community events. "Hey Joe, heard about your plans for the center." "I'm in," Jason said, grinning. "Thanks, man. I'm trying to set up a meeting with the funding group. I want everyone's voices heard." Jason gave a determined nod. "Let us do it. I can get some folks together. We can reach out to families you helped, collect their stories." His enthusiasm was contagious. Joe felt a renewed sense of purpose surging within him. They spent the next hour brainstorming ways to gather stories, posters, phone calls, even a barbecue to draw people in. Despite their efforts, doubts still loomed. What if the council didn't understand? What if they dismissed the community's stories? Joe's resolve wavered yet again. But pushing through, he felt a small flicker of excitement. For the first time in a long while, he was part of something bigger. As they finished up their plans, Jason looked at Joe, his eyes intense. "We've got your back. You won't face this alone." Feeling uplifted, Joe nodded as a smile broke across his face. But in the back of his mind, the thought lingered, what if someone within the council opposed him? Someone with power to derail everything? He couldn't let fear hold him back. This was about the community. It was about hope. Just as Joe was about to set new plans in motion, his phone buzzed again. Another unexpected call, and the curious feeling of foreboding settled in his chest. He answered, heart pounding. "Hello? Joe, it's Jake again. We have a problem." His breath caught, uncertainty creeping back in. This was getting more complicated than he ever expected, and now he had to know what would happen next. Joe's heart raced as the weight of Jake's words hung in the air. "What problem?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady despite the knot tightening in his stomach. "We received some feedback from the council. There's concern about the current state of the town. They think we need solid data before committing any funds," Jake explained, his voice deliberate. "Community support is one thing, but measurable outcomes are another." Joe clenched his fists, feeling the surge of frustration rise within him. "They want data, but we're talking about lives, real families who need this center. Numbers can't capture the importance of our community." "I understand, Joe," Jake said gently, "but I can't change their minds alone. You need to show them the human side, make it tangible. That's your strength. Convince them." "Right," Joe murmured, barely registering the rest of the conversation. How could he turn numbers into stories? His mind raced with the many faces he had seen in the town, the laughter, the struggles, the joy. They needed a way to put that into hard facts. After hanging up, he felt disoriented. He had backtracked into doubt, each hurdle amplifying his anxiety. The quiet house echoed with the uncertainty, and he glanced toward the open window. Outside, the town was waking up, unaware of his turmoil. "Joe, we can work it out." Jason's voice came firmly from behind him. "We just need to organize everything properly. What if we created a survey? We can gather community input and show their support realistically. That's data." Joe turned, his eyes widening with possibility. "The survey? That's not a bad idea. We can collect stories and preferences, show them what the community wants." "Exactly. You focus on that event, and I'll gather a team to distribute it," Jason said, his enthusiasm reigniting Joe and as they huddled over the laptop. Ideas flowed. They decided to include questions about people's experiences with the town's facilities, how a new center could change their lives. Inspiration sparked inside Joe. Each testimony they gathered, each supportive comment would serve as a beacon of hope to present at the meeting. Before they even realized it, hours had slipped by, filled with determination and purpose. With each draft, Joe felt a growing sense of unity. They were no longer just a handful of determined souls. They were a community ready to fight for their future. His phone buzzed again, and this time, it was Emily. "Joe, I heard about the meeting with the funding group. How's it going?" Her upbeat tone had a way of brightening the shadows of worry settling over him. "It's moving in the right direction. We're planning a community survey to show our support," Joe replied, feeling lighter as he spoke to her. "I know it's a long shot, but it's worth trying. I believe in you," she said with unwavering conviction. "And if you ever need me there to rally the troops or something, I'm in." Joe smiled, warmth spreading through him. "I appreciate that. This means more than you know." As he hung up, feelings of hope intertwined with a lingering anxiety. What if the council wouldn't respond positively? What if the community's love wasn't enough? With renewed energy, he dialed in a meeting with Jason and the other volunteers. They needed to push forward and rally everyone together. The time had come for the town's heart to beat louder than the doubts. Just as they wrapped up, the meeting door swung open. Sarah, a longtime resident and local artist, stepped in with a determined stride. "Hey, I'm here to help. I have an idea that could make our survey stand out." Joe's heart skipped. Maybe Sarah's creative touch could give them the edge they needed. But just as he was about to ask for details, He caught sight of a familiar face through the window, a council member, eyeing their gathering with what seemed like skepticism. Was it too late? Could they truly turn this tide? Joe felt sweat trickle down his back. The next moments would test everything he had built. Sarah, he breathed, urgency in his voice, what do you have in mind? It may just be the lifeline we need. Joe barely caught Sarah's eye before she launched into her vision. What if we make the survey interactive? Not just paper, but something that tells a story? We could set up a booth at the community fair and invite people to share their experiences on video. A wave of excitement crashed over him. That's brilliant. Picture it, we gather real voices, real stories. People can share how the new center could change everything for them. Jason leaned in closer, nodding with a wide grin. We can create something that feels alive. Maybe we could even run the videos on a loop during the next council meeting as part of our presentation. Joe's mind raced with possibilities. They could capture the raw essence of the community, the laughter, the tears, the truths. Each story would serve as a heartbeat for their cause. Just the thought of it made his pulse quicken. Let us do it, Joe declared, a fire igniting in his chest. His hands gripped the edge of the table. But we need to move fast. Sarah, can you start drafting some questions for the video? Focus on impact. What does this center mean to them? Let us get people excited about sharing. Sarah's eyes sparkled. Absolutely. I can even paint a big backdrop at the booth to attract attention. As they quickly jotted down a plan, the mood in the room shifted. The air was charged with urgency and hope. Volunteers started stepping up, tossing around ideas for how to market the booth, creating flyers, and reaching out to local vendors for support. Joe felt a sense of camaraderie. They weren't just friends or neighbors anymore. They were a team, bound by a shared vision. Words like community and collaboration took on new meaning. Okay, let us set a timeline, Jason suggested, pulling out his notebook. We have a week until the fair. We need to gather as many stories as we can before then. I'll handle the tech stuff and make sure we have cameras and a comfortable setup. And I'll reach out to the community center for some space. Sarah added, her voice filled with resolve. We'll create a welcoming environment. People want to feel valued, not just surveyed. With everyone having specific tasks, the energy pulsed through them. The fear of the council's doubts faded slightly, replaced by a collective drive to prove that the heart of their community could create real change. Just as they began to brainstorm how to make the booth truly engaging, Joe's phone buzzed again. It was Emily. I heard the fair is going to be packed this year. How can I help? Joe felt warmth envelop him. Just being there will mean the world, but if you can bring a friend or two, that would be even better. The more stories, the better. On it. I'll rally a crew to come by and share their stories. We're in this together, she promised. Her excitement infectious as they wrapped up their plans. Joe's heart swelled with hope. They were making progress not just for the proposed center but for themselves, too. They were rekindling the spirit of their community, reminding each other of what they could achieve together. But shadows of doubt still loomed. Would the council truly be swayed by their efforts? Sobering thoughts flickered in Joe's mind. Just as he stood there contemplating, he noticed the council member outside again, this time speaking to another resident who had just arrived. His expression was unreadable, and Joe's heart raced as he wondered what they were discussing. Guys, he said, voice low, if we do this well, we could really turn things around. But if they show up at the fair and it feels forced, it could be a disaster. Jason clapped a hand on his back. Joe, we'll make it real. People want to share if they feel like it's just another request. We'll share genuine stories that matter. With a determined nod, Joe felt the swell of resilience build within him. He thought about the look on the skeptic's face outside. That could change. It would change. Let us give them something they can't ignore, he declared, his voice sharp. We'll show them how our community stands together. We finally have the chance to turn the tide. As they exchanged ideas, the night grew deeper, but vibrant energy filled the room. It was a spark that could ignite a fire, a flickering hope promising the potential for something greater. But just as Joe felt the momentum gathering, the phone buzzed with a new message. He looked down to see a notification from the council. The meeting had been moved up, and they wanted to hear from Joe within the next 48 hours. What did this sudden urgency mean for their plans? Panic gripped him. Could they get everything done in time? Joe's breath hitched as he stared at the phone. The council wanted to hear from him in just 48 hours. His mind raced with the implications. They needed to gather stories, set up their booth, and present something powerful. Could they really pull this off under such pressure? Guys, listen. His voice dropped an octave, and everyone leaned in closer, gauging his tone. We have only 2 days. That's not much time to gather what we need before the fair. Jason's brows knitted together in concern. What can we do, Joe? We can speed things up. Let us mobilize everyone we know. Yes. We can set up mini-interviews around town, maybe at coffee shops or local businesses, Sarah suggested quickly, her creativity sparking new ideas. We'll grab snippets while the excitement is fresh, and we can always use social media. Great. I can help manage the social media push, Emily chimed in, her eyes alight with determination. The more noise we make, the more people will want to participate. As the ideas flowed, a sense of urgency transformed into clear purpose, igniting Joe's resolve. He felt adrenaline course through his veins. They could turn this frantic situation into a rallying point for the community. Let us divide and conquer, Joe said, newfound confidence evident in his words. Emily, you and I can hit the coffee shop in the morning. Let us see if we can get a few stories on camera before work. Actually, Sarah interrupted, her voice rising with enthusiasm. I know a guy who runs the local bakery. He always has a line out the door. We could film there after the breakfast rush. Perfect. Jason nodded, jotting down names and places in his notebook. We'll be networking in no time. Each story could be a powerful testament. People will flock to share, I just know it. As they broke into smaller groups, the energy shifted. They weren't just a team anymore. They were a movement. The walls around Joe seemed to pulse with excitement. His heart swelled with a determination he hadn't felt in what felt like ages. Later that evening, Joe and Emily walked through the community park as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shades of gold and pink across the sky. The beauty of the moment filled him with hope. Do you really think we can change things? Joe asked, his voice softer. Doubts hadn't vanished entirely, but optimism felt like a tangible entity in the air. Absolutely, Emily replied, her spirit unwavering. If we tell the right stories, the council will listen. They can't ignore real voices from real people. With each mile they walked, confidence burgeoned. They passed familiar faces, friends and neighbors who waved and shouted encouragement. It reminded Joe just how connected their community was. But as they approached the bakery the next morning, Joe's heart sank when he noticed a group of council members chatting outside. Anxiety crept in like a shadow. Were they discussing the center? Were they forming their own opinions before the fair had even begun? Emily squeezed his arm, snapping him out of his thoughts. Remember, Joe, we've got this. Our people are ready to be heard. With steely determination, he nodded and approached the bakery's entrance. The warmth of the aroma hit him. It was comforting, a reminder of home and community spirit. Just as they settled in, ready to capture their first story, a sudden roar of laughter erupted from outside. Curiosity piqued. Joe turned to see a crowd gathering. A local mechanic, known for his humble demeanor, stood on a stool, captivating everyone with a story of his own. What was it that he was revealing? As he leaned in closer, Joe felt his heart race again. Could this spontaneous moment draw in even more voices? What he sang? Joe wondered aloud, hoping against hope that this unexpected twist could aid their cause. They had a long road ahead, but perhaps this was the beginning of something bigger than they ever imagined. Joe took a step closer, his curiosity piqued. The crowd was captivated, laughter spilling into the air, mixing with the smell of fresh pastries. The mechanic's voice carried easily over the chatter, weaving his tale with unexpected flair. And then, just like that, the engine roared back to life. I swear, I thought it was going to explode, he said, playfully mimicking the sounds of sputtering engines. The crowd erupted in laughs, and Joe couldn't help but smile. There was something special about hearing laughter, especially now. As the mechanic continued, Joe focused on the faces around him. Familiar smiles and bright eyes lit up with joy. These were people he'd known for years, each one carrying their own stories, dreams, and challenges. But today, there was a palpable sense of unity, laughter breaking down the walls of worries. "Guys, we should really get this on video," Emily exclaimed, eyes wide with excitement. She pulled out her phone, ready to capture the moment. "Great idea," Joe replied, positioning himself so the mechanic would be visible. Just then, the mechanic's story took a turn, catching Joe off guard. "But it's not just about cars. It's about the connections we build, fixing up lives, too," he said, tightening his grip on the stool. "I once fixed a car for a single mom struggling to make ends meet, and it changed everything for her." There was a moment of stillness in the air, a collective breath taken. Joe felt the weight of those words resonate. To many, it was just a car. But to the mom, it represented freedom, hope, and possibility. As the mechanic continued, he shared more stories, tales of unexpected kindness, the beauty of community, and that feeling of lifting each other up. Just as he reached the climax of his story, a hush spread over the crowd, hanging thick with emotion. "You never know how a simple act can change someone's life," he concluded, his voice steady. "We are all a part of this engine called our community. Let us keep it running strong." Joe felt a twist in his gut. Wasn't this the exact message they were trying to convey? The mechanic had tapped into something profound. Joe glanced at Emily, their expressions mirroring a shared realization that they could harness this kind of storytelling. "That's it. That's the heart of what we need," Joe whispered to Emily, casting glances through the crowd. Real stories, real lives at stake. As the laughter began to swell again, the mechanic ended his story, earning a round of applause. Joe could feel the energy shift, a current brewing. People were already buzzing with ideas, connecting with each other, planning how they would share their own tales. "Let us see if we can talk to him afterward," Emily suggested, biting her lip in excitement. "Definitely. He might have the kind of story we need for our booth," Joe replied. But as he turned to leave, he noticed the council members pull away from their discussion and observe the growing crowd. They wore expressions that bordered on intrigue and concern. Heart racing, Joe turned to Emily. "What if they don't want us to share these stories? What if they think we're getting too loud?" Emily shook her head resolutely. "This is our moment, Joe. If we don't speak up now, we might lose a chance like this. We need to gather more voices, get them involved." And before he could think any longer, Joe grabbed Emily's hand and squeezed it. They bounded through the crowd, excited to network beyond their small team. Voices bubbled around them as they sought out people interested in sharing more stories. Who knows? Joe thought, pushing through the crowd. Maybe this fair might turn a spark into a flame. But even as he rallied people around him, a creeping doubt settled in. What if the council had already made up their minds? The room created from the crowd buzzed, and Joe found himself eerily staring at the mechanic's face, drawn in yet again, as if he had just opened a new door to something extraordinary. Could their collective voice challenge the council's views? What would happen if they faced resistance? The excitement simmered, but just like an unsteady engine, it sent a jolt of uncertainty through him. The day of the fair arrived, the sun shining brightly above Maplewood. A gentle breeze carried laughter and the scent of freshly baked goods through the park, where Joe and his team had set up their booth. Vibrant colors danced around them, from the streamers fluttering in the wind to the banners they had made, announcing their mission for the community center. Joe stood at the front, heart pounding with excitement and anxiety. It was showtime. He looked around, seeing familiar faces, friends, family, and neighbors. They were all there, ready to share their stories and support something bigger. Emily was beside him, camera in hand, already capturing the smiles of those arriving, the warmth filling the air. "Let us do this," he said, taking a deep breath. They began inviting people to share their experiences on camera. A little girl stepped up first, clutching her teddy bear. She beamed. "I want a place where I can learn to paint. A shiny new community center would be perfect." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Joe felt hope swell within him. They were turning this into what it was meant to be, a celebration of their town. Encouraged, he moved to the next person, an older gentleman who had long shared fishing tales along the local pier. "I want a place for the grandkids," he said, tears glistening in his eyes. "They need a safe space to grow, full of laughter and joy." Joe's heart thudded painfully against his chest. Each testimony he gathered felt like a building block, a testament to the very fabric of their community. Soon people were lining up. Neighbors freely shared their stories, the bitterness of doubt falling away like autumn leaves. Laughter filled the air, weaving a tapestry of resilience and hope. "Look at all of this," Emily exclaimed, turning the camera to capture the scene. "This is what we need to show the council." As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Joe caught sight of the council members approaching. Each step seemed calculated, but he could sense their eyes softly studying the vibrancy around them. He felt a knot in his stomach. Would they truly see the heart of Maplewood, or would they dismiss it as mere spectacle? With renewed fervor, Joe stepped forward, resonating with determination. "Excuse me, can I introduce you to these incredible stories?" He gestured to the families and friends who had shared their thoughts. Their animated chatter filled the air, voices ringing with warmth and unity. The council members exchanged glances, hesitation etched on their faces. But then one stepped forward, an older woman with kind eyes. "Let us hear them." Encouraged, Joe nodded, stepping back and allowing the community to shine. People gathered around, eager to share. The stories flowed freely, each more poignant than the last. The sincerity in their voices was unmistakable, each testimony striking a chord within the gathered crowd. The council members listened intently, and Joe could see their expressions begin to soften, doubts wavering. As the final stories emerged, Joe felt an electrifying surge of conviction. This wasn't just a booth. It was a living testament to the collective spirit of Maplewood. "You've all shown me something powerful today," the older woman from the council finally said, her voice steady. "I can see how deeply this means to you, to all of you." Hope bled through the anxious air like warm sunlight, and Joe leaned closer, heart racing. But then a shadow of doubt crossed her face. "But we still need to consider the practicality." "Let us help you," Joe interrupted, fueled by adrenaline. "Let us represent our community's needs. You won't just see numbers. You'll see lives we hope to uplift." The warmth in the crowd surged back as people nodded in agreement, a chorus of unity ringing out. The council members shifted, visibly moved, caught up in the palpable enthusiasm. They had come to assess, but they had found community. As the fair came to an end, Joe felt a sense of complete transformation. Not just within himself, but through the conversations and connections made. They had united, overcoming fears and doubts. Families joined hands, hearts pulsing with the possibility of what was to come. "Now we'll show them what it means to stand together," Joe whispered to Emily, whose eyes sparkled with encouragement. In the cool evening air, Joe watched as lanterns hung overhead glowed like fireflies, illuminating their path forward. His community was alive, wrapped in the embrace of hope and resilience. Beside him, his daughter, Lily, stood proud, the embodiment of the future they were all fighting for. In that moment of beautiful clarity, Joe realized they were not just building a center. They were creating a sanctuary, a safe haven for every voice in their town, proving that, together, they could rise above anything. And as night fell over Maplewood, Joe felt an unbreakable spirit within him. "This is just the beginning," he declared, beaming at the bright faces around him, filled with strength and purpose. Now it was their time to shine. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.